Welcome. Thanks so much for coming. Today I'm going to talk to you about this idea of what makes a teacher community excel. How many of you work in the world of like supporting teachers, teacher learning, PD, schools, right? So I think a lot of this is work that we really value and it's work that we really believe in, and we're all sort of butting up against legacy systems in our districts and our states about how we all sort of think things need to be done. So at Math for America, we're not part of the New York City public school system. We are a nonprofit. We work in partnership and in parallel with the system in informal ways. It's not an official partnership. So we are what's called a tight community. So we're an application-based community of teachers. They apply to our fellowship. They are mathematics and science teachers who have an extraordinary amount of experience. So opposite from some organizations or initiatives that we do to work with new teachers to train them, we sort of take a very different approach. And our approach is we need to take the best teachers in the system, any system, and we need to empower them and inspire them to believe in their career and feel satisfied and to really retain and have them stay in the classroom and choose careers. So that's really sort of the model that we sort of strive for. I want to do just a few minutes of definition norming. I think it's important. That sets the stage for the kind of work that we do and hopefully resonates with you and some of the work that you're doing as well. So the first thing I want to briefly talk about is the difference between a community and a group. They're actually quite different things, and they operate quite differently. I think that if you think about a group, we're a group right now. We are a group of people. We've come together. We perhaps have a similar interest. We perhaps don't. We have similar ideas about things. Perhaps we don't. But we've been brought together in a sort of way that we can all have very different values and different beliefs, and we come together by numbers and time and convenience. Communities are people who learn together and who have similar values and similar beliefs, and usually they operate in some sort of set of norms or sorts of ideals. In PD, we use this word PD all the time. It becomes our lexicon. We use it, and we all don't always mean the same thing when we talk about PD. I'm a pretty firm believer that a PD is not a discrete event, but it's actually a learning process. So groups of teachers come together to attend PD workshops. Communities of teachers take part in a learning process together. And I think while that's sort of at the basic level of language, I think it's actually fundamental. And I think all of us really want to do work in communities, but communities are hard and they're really intentional and they take time to establish and they don't happen out of the gate. And so we all live in this world, right? We have PLCs, we have SLCs, we have SLTs, we have PLTs. We all live in education, so we live in a world of acronyms. How many of you work or run one of these? Yeah, lots of you, right? And so I think the important thing about a community is sort of what we all value, and I think they all run differently, but in sort of ed reform, we sometimes get caught up in all of the different sort of languages. So at MFA, we have been very intentional about our design of what we mean when we mean how do teachers come together to learn. Just to sort of be really clear about it, we don't build curriculum. We don't work off an LMS. We bring teachers together for space and time to talk around things that they believe in. And so we have some ideals that we abide by, and that is that all of the sort of work that our teachers do together is research-based. It doesn't mean that it needs to come from research. It means that we sort of use the tools of research to debate and to sort of like create conversations that are rooted in what is. While it's a tricky word to say, and I sometimes struggle with our use of it, the deprivatization, it's really hard to rip off your tongue, meaning that teaching at its core can be really isolating, but we really believe the value of community, and so we deprivatize our conversations. We all want to improve, we all want to be focused, and we all want to sort of have equitable engagement. So I'm going to talk a little bit about these things, but I thought what I would do is sort of give you sort of how it plays out for us. And the most important thing for us is that in the simplest sense, but in the truest sense, it's a teacher community. So we run our organization on the shoulders of teachers. In our community, there's about 1,024 teachers, just to give you a sense of our N or a sense of our scale. So we run things probably similar to many of you. We run what I often call sort of a mini university. So if you can get your mental model of each semester, there's a sort of course catalog, if you will. And there are workshops and there are courses and there's seminars and there's maker spaces and there's all those different sort of structures and functions that you can imagine. But the build of that catalog, if you will, each semester is designed by what the teachers are interested in that semester. After those courses have sort of been defined by what the teachers are interested in, our teachers facilitate those courses in a co-facilitation model. That's pretty important to us. I think that we believe in of teachers, by teachers, for teachers, and so, but that's not easy, right? Teaching adults is quite different than teaching kids, and the skills of facilitation are quite different than the skills of teaching students at times, and so we spend a lot of energy and time supporting teachers to either teach them or to have them teach each other how to be facilitators of adult learning. And this idea of co-facilitation is the idea of peer-to-peer accountability is the best kind there is, in my opinion. So you want to be in a room with people for whom you feel accountable to, and doing that work with a partner who's also teaching what you're teaching is pretty powerful. So most of our courses are run by 2 teachers. This is sort of oxymoronic sometimes, I think. We try to abide by the belief that trust is assumed, not earned. I tell my children all the time that trust is earned, not assumed. But this idea that, we all work in this profession, right? And I think that we have these legacy operations and these sort of ideals that we often assume that teachers can't be trusted until they, or can't be good at something, or can't be professional, or can't be qualified, or can't be wherever you want to fall on the Danielson scale, until they prove otherwise. And so we try to flip that. In everything that we do, in all the ways that we work with teachers, we assume trust, and we don't actually ask that they earn it. And we ask them to ask that of each other as well. This is hard, right? As many of you are teachers, I was a teacher a long time ago, and I think that this idea of going to PD is really hard in reality when you're responsible for 100 kids every day as well. So all of our learning, all of our experiences, all of the times that we bring teachers together is at night, and we don't do weekends at all. Every night, 5:30 to 7:30, it's pretty standard. Teachers tell us that they appreciate sort of the consistency of time. Not that teachers come every night, the same teacher doesn't come every night. But all of our experiences are in the evening, and they meet regularly over the semester, not necessarily over a day. Some of them meet over a year's time. And this is sort of a core belief of ours, that relationships in professional learning communities are built over months and years. They're not built over hours or a day. So in New York City, we have, like I said, there's a little over 1,000 teachers in our community, and they come from all 5 boroughs. For those of you not familiar with New York City, there's 1,700 schools. There's about 950 secondary schools. There's 1.1 million kids. There's 196 languages spoken. There's about 85,000 employees, adult employees. So it's an economy unto itself. While we're a district in New York State, we're larger than the rest of the state. We're the largest school system in the country. So the scale is pretty large, for lack of a better term. And it's daunting. Yeah, it's daunting, but it's funny.
Mind-boggling.
It is truly mind-boggling. You think of, I was at a session this morning, and did anybody go to the policy forum on L learners with the soups from the South? And they were talking about dual language schools and the importance and the arduousness of translation. And it's true. And everybody's talking about Haitian Creole and Spanish. And it's true. It's like you have to translate everything in El Paso, Texas, everything. In New York City, English is the minority language in New York City now. Spanish is the official majority language in New York City. But there's 196 languages, of which each of them represents at least 3% of the students. Right, so like Spanish aside. So it's not that you have a few kids who speak Cantonese or Mandarin, you have thousands of kids. And so it's mind-boggling. It's similarly mind-boggling when you think about how to support teachers who have very different teaching experiences. New York City has the poorest school district in the country, the South Bronx. Jonathan Kozel writes about it, if you've ever sort of listened to some of his talks or heard him speak. And we also have some of the wealthiest school district or schools in the country. They're most high achieving. And so you bring those kinds of teachers together in a learning environment, and they have a very different teaching experience. Teachers tell us all the time, I teach kids who are underserved, who don't have the luxury of school being their first priority. They don't have families, or they certainly don't have dual parent families. And then you have kids who go to Stuyvesant who oftentimes do have 2 families and who are very high achieving. And so we really believe in MFA and the power of bringing those perspectives together. And the sort of the coming together for us is around content. It's around bringing chemistry teachers together, bringing physics teachers together, bringing mathematics teachers together, and doing a lot of sharing, a lot of deprivatization, assuming a lot of trust, and really trying to grapple with the hard conversations around teaching. And so we do this work on behalf of teachers everywhere, and we do this work recognizing how messy it is, and we have strands of PD communities within our larger community, and they focus on PD, content, racial diversity, racially relevant pedagogy, leadership, technology, and sort of all woven within that is sort of the professionalism of teaching. People ask me all the time about how we do this, and I think, wow, this seems super, super small. For those of you who run districts or who run professional learning organizations, to us, the biggest thing we can do to combat system legacy in terms of what teachers' perceptions are of PD, right? We all work in a world where teachers are like, oh, I have to go to that PD. Or like, my principal sent me to that PD. Or, you know, the best thing about that PD was when I sat in the back of the room and got a lot of grading done. That's happened to me before. But I think that for us, we really sit down and we spend a lot of times challenging where teachers get those perceptions from and where teachers feel devalued in the kinds of learning experiences they've been given before, and we break it all down. And then we try to build it back up much stronger and much more sort of authentic. And so for us, the minutia really matters. I think in today's day and age, the biggest thing that matters to us is inviting everyone into the conversation, regardless of their color, race, gender, or the kinds of teachers or the kinds of students with whom they work every day. And teachers tell us all the time that when they go to PD and other places, they don't always feel invited to participate. And that's sort of a meta thing to think about, but we spend a lot of time and energy paying attention to that. We do the silly stuff that's not silly. We feed them every day. Teachers are always fed. They always are referred by their first name. They don't have to sign into anything. They don't have to set up the room. Like if many of you probably gave talks this week. I'm giving a talk right now. I'm able to come on stage and be the professional speaker. I didn't have to set up. I didn't have to get the lights on. Teachers often, when they lead PD, are often asked to be the everything. They're asked to bring their own chart paper and get all of their own supplies and build the surveys and do all of the work. And for us in our large community of teachers, we try to really allow them to just be the sort of facilitators of conversation. And we try to make them feel really professional at every turn. No one's in charge when they come to PD except themselves. Here's the thing. I'm often asked how you measure. What's your research? What are your goals? As a large organization that's trying to sort of impact retention and it's trying to impact professionalism, we don't measure a lot of things, which I think really speaks to what we do measure. As a mother of two public school children, I will say I certainly value kids' success, and the teacher is the key to that. I think we can all agree with that. But we believe strongly that the testing idea is flawed in terms of its correlation to what makes a great teacher. So we don't actually value test scores as a measure of our success. We also don't measure the teacher eval system as it's correlated to our teacher success. We think it's a highly flawed algorithm. It has a place in education, but I think we all know that teaching is nuanced and it's complex and it's hard, and linear correlations of what success looks like are often troubling. And so we try very hard to care about those outcomes, but don't see them as measures of our own success. So here's what we do focus on. Our research agenda is focused around how we measure teacher-to-teacher learning. What's the exchange that happens in collaboration? What's learned? What's gained? We look at teacher-to-teacher leading, and it has an uppercase L, but I actually mean it as a lowercase L. There's this idea, I was at a talk yesterday where someone went, so you're a teacher, and then there's APs, and then there's principals, and then there's soups. And that's a really scary ladder, right? And a great teacher should have been principals. Great soups were good teachers, so I understand the ladder. But what we say to teachers when we have this ladder is, as soon as you're ready, you should leave. And so we don't say, you know what, teaching is a great profession, stay in teaching, be a leader from within the classroom. And so for us, we feel very strongly that one can lead from within the classroom, and really from within the school, right? There's this divergence between being a classroom teacher and being a school teacher. I think school teachers have the mic, they take interest in policy, they take an interest in their school community, they're empowered to take positions of leadership or voices of leadership in their schools and their communities. And so for us, we really value this idea of leading from within. Obviously, we focus on retention. And we look at school impact in different ways. We look at what's the retention of the school. Are the teachers in our community having a positive impact on the younger teachers in their school? Are they having a positive impact? Are they becoming department chairs? Are they sharing what they're doing in Math for America in their schools? And what's the sort of like juice, or what's the sort of efficacy that happens within a school because there's great teachers in it? And then we look at personal efficacy. So this is sort of a super simplistic list of the things we value. And for those of you who do research or run research agendas, they're really hard to measure. At the end of the day, we try to tell really truthful, compelling stories. And we do a little bit of quant data around doing that. And at the end of the day, for us, what we care about is identity. I think there's this idea that, how many of you were teachers? Right, we all were good. And there's this idea that teachers are doing something because they couldn't, or until they do something else. And I think at the core, at the absolute basic level, we all need to change the way we talk about teachers and teaching. It's that simple. And I think teachers need to change the way they talk about their own profession. And so for us, it's all about identity. It's all about your own personal self-efficacy. It's a belief that you can be really good at what you do, that you are really good at what you do, and that students benefit because you're really good at what you do. And so this is the thrust of what we value. This is the thrust of what we sort of perceive our own success to be. And we think we're sort of making a difference. I imagine a lot of you are as well. So like I said, this is our scale, if you will, in New York City. But this work happens in other places across the country and in other states, and I think anything we're doing is not, it's pretty simple what we do, but we really take a hard look at people and space and time. We don't try to build something and then sort of require everyone to do it. We don't have anything like a turnkey model, quite the opposite. And so for us, we think there's real value in a teacher who teaches over here to have a conversation with the teacher over here over months, over years. These relationships matter. Teachers tell us all the time that's why they stay in the classroom. They feel less isolated. They feel like they have a community, and they really, more than anything, feel like they belong. And I think communities are real places where people feel like they belong. That's it.